You having a bad week? You could be this guy from tonight's Seahawks game.
Yikes.
That's a bad week.
That's a bad week.
That's a bad week. Man, I'm Steve Rabinowitz.
I'm Jay Kaplan.
And I'm just happy I'm not that guy, but better known as Anthony Strait.
Welcome to the On the Sports Lines Mishmash edition. We have a little bit of the baseball ALDS playoffs, and we have a little bit of football at the semi-quarter pole coming your way this week. So we'll get to the ecstasy of the MLB playoffs, the shock of the NFL teams actually winning before the quarter pole, Giants and Jets, and the awe that we have of NFL surprises. But first, the one thing I didn't mention, agony. It's been a whole 8 days since we did the baseball postmortem, but the Yankees joined the Mets in misery as their season ended on Tuesday, 6-2 in the wild card game against the Red Sox. 5th time in 7 years, the Yankees don't make it to the ALDS. 12th time in 12 years, that's 100% for you kids who don't do math. The Yankees don't make it into the World Series. So what in the goddamn name of Bucky Denton went wrong for the Yanks, and what's the fix for 2022? Let's start with Jay.
Yeah, the amazing thing I think is that the fact that the Yankees actually won 92 games this year. I got to tell you guys, one of the things that I like most about our show is that we don't really do hot takes. We don't pull the type of knee-jerk reaction stuff that people like Anthony's BFF, Stephen A. Smith pull, with the ink barely dry on an outcome. Yeah, I did it just to get that look on your face, bro. Being on once a week allows us time to sit with an issue, let all the nonsense play out, and then we weigh in with measured responses. 2 days is not a lot of time to sit with the subject of what the Yankees offseason to-do list should entail, but I'll give it a shot for you. My initial thought in the wake of the Yankees lost in the AL wildcard game, and this could change with time over the winter, is that this team needs to find an identity, figure out who they are, or at least who they want to be if they want to be a legit World Series contender next season. We spent 162 games, 163 if you count the loss to the Red Sox this week, following a team we could not, for the life of us, figure out who they really were. Are they the team that won 13 straight after the Field of Dreams game loss to the White Sox, or the team that more resembled the Orioles or the Diamondbacks once that streak ended, where they couldn't buy a win? We saw that what Judge and Stanton can do when they're healthy and on their games at the same time. They carried the team in September, but we're still not sure who should be surrounding them. Is Anthony Rizzo the answer at first base, or does Luke Voit deserve another shot? Is the rest of the infield better served with Torres back at second, Urshela at shortstop, and DJ at third? Is what Joey Gallo gives the team in terms of left-handed power and drawing walks with Gold Glove defense really enough to offset the fact that the man can't seem to hit above the Mendoza line? Where does Aaron Hicks fit in when he returns from injury next season? Which Garrett Cole is the real Garrett Cole, the guy who started the season lights out with a 1.7 ERA in his first 11 starts, or the guy who struggled after the Spider Tack crackdown and only got 6 outs against the Red Sox in the AL wildcard game, lost, giving up 3 runs on 2 homers? What can we possibly make of the guys who came behind him in the rotation? Taillon and Kluber had sample sizes too small due to injuries. Severino, Herman, they look like they may be who we hope they be, but again, small sample sizes. Can Montgomery and Cortez replicate their production next year? 6 guys for 4 spots behind Cole. Is Chapman declining? Can Britton stay healthy? Granted, Loizaga, Holmes, and Green produced well enough to merit first dibs at the innings in front of Chapman and Britton if they're back to their usual selves. After that, who knows? And I guess those are the 2 words that make up the most prominent question the Yankees need to answer this offseason. Who knows? I don't think Cashman or Boone are going anywhere, and I have no problem with that. But they need to answer that question as it relates to the identity of this team. Brett Gardner is the last link to the 2009 World Series team, and who knows if he'll be back next season. Once he's gone and that link is gone, who knows what this team will use as a touchstone to the team's history and legacy? Who will be that guy? Judge? Cole? Who knows? Hopefully we find out, and this team comes to spring training with an actual identity.
Well, I remember going back to our All-Star break show, and one of the things I talked about was just who was this team. And Jay, you're right. This team just never could figure it out or get out of its own way for that matter. By the way, I looked up a key stat. the Yankees were tied for tops in the league. It gets thrown out of home plate. They've been thrown out 22 times. And, and when you look at that game.
That happened to Judge Tuesday night, right?
Yeah. And we look at what happened in that wild card game. It's like a microcosm of the entire season and one game wrapped up. Yeah. It was Stanton hitting a 400 bomb that hits the top of the wall, but he doesn't run out of the batter's box, and he's held to a single. And then Gallo can't hit. Then when the Yankees finally have an opportunity to get back into the game, Judge is thrown out. But when you watch the replay of that game of that play, third base coach Phil Nevin waits a little too late to give him the go ahead to run home. He's not running at full speed. Whereas earlier, I was at the Boston Red Sox Tampa Bay Division Series Game 1. In a similar play earlier tonight, Randy Rosarina is running full speed. He's got the green light. He's running, and there's even a good throw to the plate. It's going to be hard to throw him out. Judge, because he's under the impression he's going to stop at third base, slows up, and then has to try to pick his speed back up again.
Which is not easy for a guy his size.
Yeah, when he's given the green light to come home, and I think that really made a bigger difference in him getting thrown out of home play as much as it was the relay throw, which, by the way, the Red Sox did a great job of playing that carom off the wall and getting the ball back in as far as they can. Then you look at Garrett Cole, and you look at the $324 million they given to him for spots and moments like this, and he just didn't have it. And you saw that, and it felt like everything that was going on felt like the Yankees season in a nutshell. You talk about the offensive struggles and inconsistency in the first half of the year. Then he got red hot after the Field of Dreams game, like as you mentioned. And then he stumbled along against the bottom feeders of Major League Baseball. Yeah. And then they turned it back on. And we saw how it was like one moment you saw how good this team could be when they went into Fenway a little over 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And a dramatic 3-game sweep. And then you saw what they've been all along. And a quote to Link Dennis Green, they are who we thought we were. And the Yankees, for what it's worth, have just been an inconsistent team. And they have question marks. I never thought the Yankees and the Mets would be in the same category as far as offseason question marks. The Mets the Mets are who they are. We know what the Mets are. The Yankees is, do you bring back Aaron Boone? I mean, I would do that, but then this is a Yankee team that fired Joe Girardi after a Game 7 loss in league championship series in 2017. So we don't know. I mean, that's a big question. Also, Aaron Judge, he's going to the final year of his deal, his age 30 season. Do you give him the extension? Do you bring him back? He said he wants to be a Yankee for life. I don't see why not, but there's a lot of question marks, as far as the guys they traded for, the Wizzles and the Gallows. What do you do in that case? And also, again, starting pitching is another question mark going into next season. There's so many things that the Yankees have to correct before spring training, and it's a wonder this team won 92 games in the division that they were in. That saw 3 teams in the playoffs. It could have easily been 4. Had there been a expanded playoff this year, so a year ago, with Toronto coming on strong late. Look, the Yankees, it's been 12. I always call Yankee fans kind of spoiled for the success and the riches of championships when you go 12 years for like an eternity of getting to the World Series, but you have 27 championships to fall back on. But the Yankees are measured by that very mark. They're measured by championships. They're not measured by wild card or division series success. And by the way, in the last 4 years, it said the Yankees have lost at every level.
Yeah, that is true. But stop. But I want to correct some things before we finish off, because I don't like Met fans soliloquying about the Yankees all of the time. First of all, Jay, your spider tack comment, I think the injuries that Cole had.
I'm not saying that he was using. That's just the dividing point of
it's more season. The dividing point of the season is when he got COVID and the injuries he had late in the season. The injuries he had late in the season. The problem with Garrett Cole is when he doesn't have his best stuff, he can't get through a game. there are pitchers who come into games, especially in Yankee lore, who don't have their best stuff that can get you 5 innings, which is all you need in baseball to get themselves from 6 to 9, because that Yankee bullpen was outstanding for the most part in September. Yeah. Also, Giancarlo Stanton, perfect year. I know you could say, oh, he didn't run out first base. You finally saw what Stanton could be when healthy, and you finally saw what Judge could be when healthy, an MVP candidate. And I would give that man 5 to 7 years right now. But I want to go back to what Aaron Boone said at the end of his press conference after all of this was done on Tuesday night. He said, we need to do some changes. The rest of the league has caught up to us, like the Bostons, the Tampa Bays, and the Houstons. And then I have this to say. Caught up to you. They've gone past you and lapped you. Houston has been to 2 World Series and went back to the ALCS last year and looks like they're going to again. Tampa Bay won the division this past last year and won the division this year as a 100-game winner. Boston won 92 games and has probably one of the best managers out there as far as I'm concerned in Alex Cora. The White Sox are better and younger. The Mariners are better and younger. The Blue Jays can hit more home runs. And if they ever saw their bullpen.
And Rabbi.
Everybody knew.
Who mentioned everybody about the Blue Jays being the team that can wreak havoc this year?
You also said the Rays were going to take a step back. So hold the brakes there, sir. But all I can say is the Yankees have a lot to take care of. I think. You can try to give Rizzo a new contract. It's going to be some negotiation, but Rizzo is a good enough bat to have. Joey Gallo can kick rocks for all I'm concerned, but he has a year left on his deal, so you're going to have to deal him. Shortstop is going to be an interesting position. I would keep Urshela at third base, and I would keep him definitely on this team, especially for his defense.
Yeah, but where are you going to put LeMahieu if Urshela's playing third?
LeMahieu can do it. Well, let's put LeMahieu at third and let's put Urshela as utility person. But you have to remember, Aaron Hicks is probably injured at the moment that I talk right now and always gets injured. So that's going to be a concern. But 92 wins is a surprise, but you need to get better in a lot of different facets, or this team is going to be lucky to make the AL wildcard this year. 92 wins is a prerequisite to even get into the job conversation of being an elite team. Let's move on. Let's move on.
Yeah.
I want winners, said the great coach Mike Singletary. And the final 8 of the AL and NLDS are just that. First, the junior circuit, where we see 2 teams who the Yankees have no chance to, in the words of Pedro Martinez, call their daddies, and face off in Tampa Bay in their game 1. The Tampa Bay Rays and Boston Red Sox, they are AL East rivals. They're playing in one series, and the Chicago White Sox and Houston Astros are meeting in the other DS. Jay, the Rays and Red Sox meet for the 3rd time ever in a playoff series. Give me the keys for both teams.
Let me start with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays and
Rays. The devil has been taken way out of that team a long time ago. The power of Christ has compelled them. They are one of the best organizations in baseball. The power of Christ
has compelled them. Rabbi. All right, let me get into it. Guess what, guys? The Rays can actually score runs. And the key to the series for them is going to be that offense. They crossed the plate 857 times, a franchise record, 2nd in Major League Baseball, only to those Astros. Last year, they rode an unconventional but excellent pitching staff to the World Series. If they get back this year, it'll be on the strength of an unconventional offense and their ability to take the extra base on balls put in play. They're a platoon-heavy team that mixes and matches based on opposing pitchers, but it feels like everyone who steps into the batter's box can take one out of the yard. Rays have 10 guys with double figures in home runs this year, from outfielder Manuel Margot on the low end with only 10, all the way up to all-star second baseman Brandon Lowy with 39. On paper, it's head-scratching how a team that has almost 25% of their plate appearances end in strikeouts and has no one with a batting average higher than rookie Wander Franco's 288 which he compiled in only 70 games after being called up in June, scored that many runs and won 100 games, but they did it and are as much of a threat as any of the AL teams to make a deep postseason run. Their offensive philosophy is how it relates is to the strikeouts. May not make any sense to the average fan, but as hitting coach Chad Modela put it, here's the quote: "You walk in the big leagues by scaring guys out of the zone. You don't walk by taking. To make the pitcher have some fear, these guys are going to be hunting fastballs right away. So there's going to be mistakes made for sure, but understand those mistakes have a reason behind them and long-term positive effects. There is going to be a night where we just look bad. That's baseball, but at least there's a message provided long-term. Tampa Bay doesn't want to wear pitchers out. They want the hitters to punish them. And while teams that strike out at the level the Rays do can be exploited in the postseason, Tampa feels their lineup has enough variety and dimension to get after the high level of starting pitching they're likely to see as the playoffs continue. You start with Randy Arozarena. We all know what he did in the playoffs last year. 2020 season this year, went yard in game 1. Lowry, second on the team with 99 RBI behind Austin Meadows, 106. Franco, who's on pace for 16 homers, 90 RBI, and 123 runs scored if he had played a full season. Catcher Mike Zunino, 33 jacks this year, led the team with a .559 slugging percentage. And lest we forget, the Rays picked up 41-year-old veteran slugger Nelson Cruz from the Twins, and he totaled 32 homers and 86 RBI this year, 13 and 36 in 55 games with Tampa. They also feel their base running ability gives them that something extra that most teams don't have. The policy is 3 hard steps out of the batter's box on every ball put into play. From there, the runner can sprint or coast, but he's in motion at the start. For the Rays, that's how singles become doubles, doubles become triples. They steal bases. Guys go from first to third, second at home. We saw it in the first run the Rays scored in game 1, where Arozarena took advantage of a bobble in center field by the Red Sox on a hit by Franco, flew, never stopped going. They force catchers and outfielders to make throws and take advantage when those throws don't go as planned. This is a team that grinds you for a full 9 innings, and if their formula continues well into October, I won't be surprised where they end up. For Boston, it's this simple, guys. The Stars have to play like stars. The Rays had the Red Sox number this season. Tampa went 11-8 against Boston, 13-4 in the second half, and the Rays are easily the most complete of the two teams. So is there anything Boston can hang their hat on to give them a chance in this series? They did win 3 of the last 5 between the two teams, and the overall run differential for the series was 2 runs, 106-104 in favor of Tampa. Red Sox come into this series. They're not lacking in confidence. Tampa does not scare them, but they're going to have guys. They're going to need their stars to play like stars. Starts with Xander Bogaerts, 295, 370, 493 slash line, 23 homers, 79 RBI, 90 runs scored, 863 OPS. Rafael Devers, who really came into his own this season as the Red Sox big bopper, 279, 352, 538 slash line, 38 home runs, 113 RBIs, 101 runs scored, 890 OPS. Now, DH J.D. Martinez is on the ALD roster, but with his injured ankle, his availability is questionable, and not having that bat, which put up 28 homers and 99 RBIs with an 067 OPS, is going to be a tough hole in the lineup to fill. It'll mean like guys like Kyle Schwarber, a postseason hero in his days in Wrigleyville, is going to have to continue his current hot hitting. He finished strong, 342, 500, 684 slash line during his final 14 games. 3 homers, 10 RBI, 13 runs scored. His OPS was 1.184. And on balls hit in play, batting average with balls in play, he hit 370. He's going to spend time at both first base and DH. But with Martinez not 100%, his bat's going to be key. In 25 career postseason games, his slash line is 290, 410, 609, 7 homers, 12 RBIs, and a 1019 OPS. Then you got the complimentary guys who are also going to need to step up. Talking about Bobby Dahlbeck, 25 homers, 78 RBI. Second half of the season, he had 15 of his 25 homers. Hunter Renfroe, not Rabbi's current favorite NFL player, but the outfielder who left the Sunshine State.
Only for the hit he made on Monday. It makes him my current favorite NFL player of right now.
Well, the former Ray has solidified right field for Boston. 31 homers, 96 RBI, OPS of 816. Kiki Hernandez, 6th Red Sox player with at least 20 homers and 60 RBI, hit those exact numbers. Also, the 6th has scored at least 80 runs. How Boston deploys him, second base or center field, along with how they deploy Alex Verdugo, will be something to keep an eye on. Both started in game one. Yeah, Boston does need to figure out who will handle the ninth inning with Matt Barnes imploding late in this season and losing his closer role. They're also going to need to figure out their starters aside from wild card winner Nathan Eovaldi, who won't be available until game three. Eduardo Rodriguez started game one, but he only lasted an inning and 2/3. Chris Sale, he of the 3.16 ERA and 52 Ks in 42 and 2/3 innings since his return from Tommy John surgery, is a possibility for game two. But their stars and the other big hitters in their lineup need to come up big if the lights in Fenway are going to stay on past this weekend, fellas.
Just a heads up, since I'm not going to mention it. The fact that this is a rotation that has Shane McClanahan, who started tonight, who made his major league debut in the World Series last year. Yeah. Shane Baz, who was part of the U.S. Olympic team in Tokyo and just made his debut last month.
2 Shanes, no waiting.
Yes. And Drew Rasmussen, who just got traded from Milwaukee. They're doing it's the system. It's the system. It's the system. That's what Tampa Bay does, and that is why I hate that organization so much.
You gotta respect them, though.
Absolutely. I do respect them. I still hate them. Anthony, we have the rare World Series rematch taking place in a non-World Series. What's the key for the other Sox and the Astros, especially after their dominant win?
Come on, there's barely anybody left from the
Well, in the coaching staff, there isn't. The players are still, the names remain the same on the field with the players for most of them.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that this is a World Series rematch from 2005, and obviously this is their first playoff matchup since then. This is a matchup with two very even teams. You're talking about the 1 and 2 top rated offensive teams in the league, not named the Tampa Bay Rays. And then you talk about the managers themselves, Dusty Baker and Tony La Russa, who are both members of the AARP club and have a roster full of players. You're going to be the grandchildren.
When Dusty Baker is the less cantankerous of the two managers, you know we are really dealing with the AARP club here.
Yeah, well, no. You're dealing with Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino. Get these kids off my lawn. Those guys don't like each other, by the way.
Baker. They're in your dugout. No, they're not in your lawn. They're in your dugout.
Yeah, and you know what? Both teams are star-studded as far as all stars. Look at one side, the Astros, Jose Altuve, who just as big in game one this afternoon. Carlos Correa, Kyle Tucker, Alex Bregman, Lance McCullers Jr., who I'll get to in a second. And then you look on the other side, the White Sox, one of the youngest teams in baseball. And of course, it looked like at times they won games in spite of the grumpy old man that's managing them in the dugout. But you look at the Tim Anderson, Luke Roberts, Lucas Giolito, who's going to be the game two starter tomorrow afternoon. And both have Jose Abreu. Both teams have stars, have great offensive firepower, and former MVPs. But what it comes down to for me in this series is the experience that the Astros have. This is a team that's been to the World Series 2 of the last 4 years. They won 1. They've been to the ALCS last year in spite of all the cheating and the backlash that they received.
And they were 31-30, and they were 29-31 going into the playoffs.
Yeah, and 2 games under. They were one of 2 teams that made the playoffs under 500, which was a first since 1978. Just a kind of a stat out there. But you look at the Astros lineup; they only been together 29, like their full lineup in 29 games this season. You got to deal with injuries. COVID, they had a COVID outbreak earlier this season that caused them the postponements of games. They were 18-11 in those games, and now you go to game 1. Well, Lance McCullers was just stellar. I mean, he was scoreless in 6 2/3 innings, only struck out 4, but you know what? He had 0 walks, had the slider going. And how good is the Astros lineup when the AL batting champion, Yuli Gurriel, goes 0 for 4 and strikes out 3 times. And the experience, you're talking about a ground ball, and Tuve beats out the throw at home plate. And then jumping on Lance Lynn early in the game and getting some early in the count. that is championship experience that I think the Astros can lean on against a team that on paper that's an even match. It's going to be interesting to see how Game 2 plays out because Giolito does pitch well against the Astros. The Astros lineup tend to struggle against left-handers, so maybe that may tip the game in the favor of the Chicago White Sox. They have to get tomorrow's game. I don't feel like they can win back-to-back games. Yeah, in a best-of-5 series against this Astros team. They're just too good. And think about this: McCullers is the pseudo ace in this lineup that lost. You know, we mentioned Garrett Cole. They lost a ton of guys, and I mean, it's just amazing how this Astro team just keeps coming back. But like I said, Game 2 is going to be really key to see if the Astros just kind of run away with the series, or if the White Sox can make it a series.
Yep.
Jay.
Yes.
Two Lances played each other in Game 1 of that series. The first time that we ever had a Lance versus Lance pitching matchup, and you didn't make the two Lances no waiting joke. Come on,
I gotta listen to something, Rabbi. I can't take all of the good jokes. I can't take all of the good jokes. I gotta let you have
but
something.
That one you had right in a.
I gotta let you have something. Come on now.
All right.
You're equally capable of making the same joke.
Well, it was there. Okay, so let's just talk about some quick X factors or key players to watch. Jay mentioned Nelson Cruz, and I mentioned him in our trade deadline show. One of my best calls ever was mentioning how the Padres were going to struggle after what happened at the trade deadline to them, and they've now fired their manager, and how I thought the Rays would be helped by having a big hitter in their lineup. Cruz's numbers hasn't been amazingly great, but just remember, you're getting a 41-year-old in your clubhouse who can still mash the ball, and he did tonight, right off of the catwalk over in Tropicana field / cesspool. And the Rays are just a great home run hitting team. They just became a better hitting team when Cruz got there, and he's a help in the lineup. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what Cruz does in this postseason. He hasn't won a World Series, and he's got not too many years left in him. So I'm very curious to see how Nelson Cruz does in this lineup. Now, the White Sox, I have to like Yasmani Grandal, who has been in the playoffs for 6 consecutive years, now doing it with his third different team. Had a bad 200, 429, 800 slash line in the wild card series against the Oakland Athletics last year when he got traded from the Brewers to the White Sox. But hit 23 home runs this season, second most on the team, was on the injured list for 2 months, and he still had 23 home runs. He walks, he has a 420 on base percentage, would have led the league, but didn't have enough plate appearances to actually qualify for said award. That White Sox lineup is actually almost as deep as the Astros, but they've never also been healthy together this season. So it's time to see what the White Sox can do in this game too. I'm very, very interested to see though, because the White Sox, they beat up on a bad division this year. Let's face it. Everybody in that division finished under 500.
They were coasting basically since May.
Yeah, a lot of teams were coasting since May. They were definitely the chief offenders of coasting since May.
I mean, Rabbi, the White Sox were barely over 500 in the second half of the season. But
they didn't need to be, and that's going to be a key factor because they haven't done well against the good teams. Even the Yankees, they lost 2 out of 6. They only won 2 out of actually 1 out of 6 against them this year. Got swept here and only won that Field of Dreams game. So White Sox Astros could be an interesting series, but to me right now, both of these series looks like they're going 4 or less. Let's move on.
All right.
The NL features the Atlanta Braves squaring off against the Milwaukee Brewers, but that's the undercard to what is the main event. I am not one for semantics or overhyping, but this matchup cannot be understated enough. The second best rivalry in baseball is the San Francisco Giants and the Los Angeles Dodgers by a country mile. They have never met in the postseason. The shot heard around the world was technically a regular season tiebreaker game. They have 107 and 106 wins, respectively, by far and away the 2 best teams in MLB in 2021. Not even close. This is a 5-round heavyweight fight. I need some water. Jay, keys for each team.
Well, no. The Braves and the Brewers are the undercard, and the undercard always goes first. So, Anthony, you lead off.
All right, well, I guess.
Or, okay, why don't you change the batting order on me after you didn't bring out a script?
Okay, well, Rabbi goes to get a beverage or whatever the heck he's doing. Look, the Braves and the Brewers. I call this the Hank Aaron series because obviously the late Henry Aaron, who we lost earlier this year, played for both these teams. Both called County Stadium home in Milwaukee at one point. FYI, but this is a classic case of power hitting.
Hank Aaron played for two different Milwaukee baseball teams. If you want to get technical about it.
Yeah, and here's the thing. This is a classic case of power pitching versus power hitting. Look at the potent Atlanta Braves lineup who lost Osuna and lost Ronald Acuna along the way this season and still had three guys who hit 30 home runs or more, and the entire infield has hit at least 20 home runs. And it's led by, obviously, perennial powerhouse left MVP candidate Freddie Freeman. Then you go down Ozzy Albies. So you look at the right-handed hitters, Jorge Soler, who they added at the trading deadline, big acquisition pickup when you consider Acuna being lost for the season. They needed some more pops right side of the lineup. So, and the Braves hit 239 home runs during the regular season. That's third in the majors behind the heavyweight bout of the Giants and the Dodgers, respectively. And this is with losing two big boppers that was key to them getting to the LCS a year ago. On the other side, look at a Brewers team that barely had a team hit above 200 the last 14 games of the season. This is not this is the long from the days of Ryan Braun and Prince Fielder. This team do not hit for power. No. They were one of the worst offensive hitting teams in the league, and I actually got to see them when they came to Citi Field earlier this season. They were bad as the Mets at one point as far as offensive goes, but their pitching staff is as good as it gets. You think about Corbin Burns, an all-star. Then you think about Brandon Woodruff, who started the game that I attended at Citi Field and was stellar for 5. It was stellar for 5 2/3 innings stat night. Then you look at Freddie Peralta, who could have been an all-star, probably should have been, and you got a 1-2-3 monster that they can throw at the Atlanta Braves and slow down this lineup. Because the Braves can counter with Charlie Morton and Max Fried in games 1 and 2, and Ian Anderson in game 3. So they have a bit of a good rotation of their own, but the Brewers definitely have the edge in starting rotation, especially if these pitchers tend to go deep, which the Brewers may need, because if there's anything that the Braves have as far as the advantage with his pitching, it's the bullpens. Will Smith is a very underrated closer. They have more arms to get to him, whereas the Brewers just struggle to get to Hader late in games, which is why they rely so much on the start rotation to get them a good 6 or 7 innings. I don't think this is going to be one of those really hot offensive, high-scoring series. Neither team plays in hitter-friendly ballparks, but I think, but to me, pitching always beats hitting in the postseason, and we see it time and time again. I'm leaning with Milwaukee. I think they win this series in 5. Because I feel like their pitching is going to win out. They do just enough to score enough runs. They play small ball. They're a traditional National League style team. I think that's going to edge out the power hitting of the Atlanta Braves.
By the way,
what's interesting to me, guys, is how much of a non-factor in the Brewers lineup Christian Yelich has been this year. His the fall off between, the last couple of years where he's been an MVP type candidate to this year is one of the things that has astounded me.
Well, yeah. First of all, Peralta did make the All-Star team. He eventually did get voted in.
He was a replacement player, yes.
Yeah, also, Milwaukee has been in the playoffs for 5 straight. He has been in the playoffs for, I think, 5 straight years and didn't actually make it for 26 from 1982 to 2008. So that's seeing how good of an organization this has become. And of course, the Atlanta Braves have won the most division titles since 1970. So
Craig Counsell
is a Met fan, okay?
Yeah.
I have to remind you, this is consistency.
Yeah, Craig Counsell is one of the most underrated managers in the game, guys. He does a really
good job.
Job.
Jay, ding, ding, ding. Let's analyze the heavyweight matchup.
He gets the Wilder Fury of this card, apparently.
Yeah. Excuse me, guys. You're right. This is the matchup that everyone wanted. And we talked about it last week. How it was a shame that, like the Dodgers had to won 106 games and still had to freaking play the Cardinals in order to have to get a date with, their division rival. And this is going to be fun. Keys for each team. For the Giants, it's really easy. It's their bullpen. It's that simple. They're the first team in baseball history with 6 relievers who threw at least 50 innings, and each of them had an ERA under 3. And while they don't have a slew of traditional fireballers who routinely hit 100 miles per hour, the Giants relievers average fastball velocity is 92.2, which is the 4th lowest in the majors and the lowest among the postseason teams. Same with their 8.4 strikeouts per 9 rate. But on the flip side, their 3.07 strikeout to walk ratio is second best in the majors, which is why this group is able to routinely get outs in high leverage situations when called upon and closes out wins. They throw strikes. They don't beat themselves. The Giants' 6 relievers are right-handers Tyler Rogers, 2.22 ERA in 80 games and 81 innings. Zach Littell, 2.92 ERA, 63 games, 61 and 2/3 innings. Dominic Leone, 1.51 ERA in 57 games, 53 and 2/3. On the left-hand side, Jose Alvarez, 2.37 ERA in 67 games, 64 and 2/3. Garland Garcia, 2.62 ERA, 58 games, 68 and 2/3 innings. And Jake McGee, 2.72 ERA in 62 games, 59 and 2/3 innings. Their overall bullpen ERA of 2.99 is the lowest in the majors. The only 2 seasons in this millennium in which the Giants posted a lower bullpen ERA were 2010 and 2002. Each time they appeared in the World Series. They also set a record for relief wins in a month, going 16-3 in September. Now, when you consider that in August and September, the Giants lost starters Alex Wood to the COVID injury list and Johnny Cueto to a tender elbow, and they struggled to get consistently deep starts from Kevin Gausman and Anthony DeSclafani. Sclafani. Wow, that's a mouthful. The Giants would not have been able to stave off the Dodgers and win the NL West without their bullpen. The question for this group heading into the NLDS against the Dodgers, the division series we all want to see, is how they handle the late innings. Will they return to Jake McGee, who led the team with 31 saves? Will it be Rogers, or will manager Gabe Kaplan ride with Camilo Doval, who's been hot of late closing games? Will the depth they can run out there override the fact that they don't really have a Mariano Rivera for the night? We'll see. Key for the Dodgers, Trey Turner. When I picked the Dodgers to come out of the National League, I talked about all the big name arms and bats they have. Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler, Julio Urias, Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, Kenley Jansen, Blake Trinan, the bulk of the most dominant pitching staff. Right fielder Mookie Betts, shortstop Corey Seager, center fielder Cody Bellinger, third baseman Justin Turner, and first baseman Max Muncy were the bulk of one of the best offenses. Then the Dodgers pulled off the biggest coup of the trade deadline, getting Max Scherzer and Trey Turner from the Nationals for basically nothing. Mad Max was ridiculous. I talked about the numbers he's put up since donning Dodger blue on the last show, and it'll make the loss of Kershaw for the postseason more bearable. But for me, the key to another World Series run will be Trey Turner, one of the best shortstops in the game, who agreed to move to the other side of the Keystone Sack when he came to Chavez Ravine and has done as much for the lineup as Scherzer has done for the rotation. Turner is as five-tool a player as there is in baseball. In 52 games with LA, he put up a 338, 385, 565 slash line with 10 homers, 28 RBIs, 41 runs scored, and 11 steals in 13 tries. His OPS was 950. Overall, Turner led all of Major League Baseball with 195 hits and a 328 batting average, his first batting title. He led the NL with 32 steals and 37 attempts. His full season slash line, 328, 375, 536, 28 homers and 77 RBIs, 107 runs scored, a 911 OPS. His ability to impact the game with his bat as well as his speed. He is feet down the fastest runner in baseball. At the top of the Dodger lineup, gives them a dynamic they did not have last season. There was one play in his first week as a Dodger that best shows this. Turner was on first, and he broke for second as A.J. Pollock hit a grounder that barely rolled into the outfield grass. Turner did not stop running, and he scored all the way from first. The Dodgers may need plays like that against the Giants if they're going to have a chance to repeat as World Series champs. Thankfully, they have a player who can make them.
They have a lot of players that can make them. For God's sakes,
I don't know about a lot of players who can specifically make that play, scoring from first.
But
ball that
they're
barely
hitting.
Gets into the outfield.
Their hitting, though, is ridiculous. I mean, get a guy off the bench, walk-off home run, Chris Taylor. Oh, yeah, and you have one of the greatest hitters of all time on your bench in Albert Pujols. Who says this team doesn't have an embarrassment of riches? However, San Francisco did play better than them in the regular season, which is so shocking. However, still though, 107 wins. Kenley Jansen is my X factor for the Dodgers. He has always been a postseason anomaly. Sometimes he'll shut him down like he did last year. Sometimes he'll tremendously struggle, and Dodger fans are gonna boo him. And again, last night, he basically sat down St. Louis 1-2-3 to get themselves right back into the bottom of the ninth. He had a 1.24 ERA in the first half of the season, but then he struggled with 3 consecutive blown saves, including 2 straight against these same San Francisco Giants that got him booed by the Dodger Stadium crowd. He had some good numbers this year, but his velocity was all over the place. Did have a much better September. Walks are up, but again, with the Blake Triton, Kenley Jansen, you're going to want 9 outs from them almost every single night, and that's going to be very interesting for the Dodgers. Maybe 6, but we'll see. But in a perfect world, you want to get 6 to 9 outs every single night from those 2 players in specific. For the Brewers, I went a lot of ways, but since I've heard a lot about Wander Franco, how about the guy who they traded for, that they made sure left to go to Milwaukee, did the Rays, so Franco could take over the shortstop plays, and that's Willy Adames. Brewers, after he came to them on May 21st, went 74-44. 285, 20 home runs, 58 RBIs, and 886 OPS. Led the team with 3.9 wins above replacement. I know you guys love that stat. And even though he just played 99 games after the trade. Adames, it's again one of those rare win-win situations. That's a guy who's going to make that team go, and not really too many highlights in that offensive lineup. But I'm very interested to see both of these series. I know I've been joking about the Braves and the Brewers, but the Braves in any postseason series that's not the World Series or when they're in a position to win, sorry, Atlanta, you're just a bunch of choke jobs, is always going to be very, very interesting. Braves play hard. And again, the Brewers have a standard of excellence now that they've kind of set for themselves, going to be a very interesting October, especially in the NL. Not so sure about the AL, but the NL,
yeah, the biggest winner. Yeah, the biggest winner.
Do we want to make any picks here? Do we want to make any World Series predictions? Anybody want to change?
You 2 have your World Series still left. I'm the freaking idiot who went Dodgers Padres.
I don't.
You have Yankees Astros. You had Yankees. No, I'm sorry. That's right. Yankees are out. So
you're out.
Me.
I'm staying with the Dodgers. But I'm kind of leaning towards Tampa coming out of the AL. That's where I'm leaning.
Yeah, I agree.
For me, I'm sticking with the Astros in the American League, and I'm leaning toward the Giants in the National League. I mean, who knew that a late May 3-game set and loss at Chavez-Ravine is actually the difference in the one game that separated the Giants and the Dodgers in the standings. So think about May 28th, the Giants came from behind and won that game, and now look how big that played. As far as the regular season, TPS is the biggest winners of all this because they get both NL series exclusively. So, I mean, they're the biggest winners in all this.
Dodgers Rays. The Rays are the best team in the AL, and I think they have talent in almost every position. And as much as the Giants have had a very good year, a lot of these players are young. Dodgers have been through this many and many a time. And I think we saw last year that they've kind of have a little bit of the monkey that came off of their back. So they either play loose or they play like they want to start a dynasty. And I think they're going to start a dynasty. All right, let's move on. After the Giants' first win this past Sunday, dramatically in overtime against the Saints, the Giants actually find some promise going into the second quarter poll at 1-3. But with a schedule with 5 out of the next 6 against teams who are 3-1, Yikes. But let's find positives and negatives. Jay, you'll start. Give me a positive going into the second quarter of the season.
Yeah, the thing that has stood out for me, and I've, I'm a broken record here, but it is to me it's what it is, and that's Daniel Jones continuing to make good plays and good decisions, and for all these so-called experts in the media who, after Daniel Jones fumbled away a ball in week 1, pulled out there, here we go again, knee-jerk reactions. How you like the kid out of Duke now? He's fumbled 2 other times, did not lose the ball. He has only 1 interception this season, and it was a throwaway on a Hail Mary at the end of the first half of the week 4 win over the Saints. After that came after 124 straight clean attempts. His passer rating has been no lower than 90.7 in any game so far, and he's topped 100 twice, including a 108.5 mark this past week when he set a career high with 402 yards passing. He also completed 70% of his passes, averaged almost 10.1 yards per attempt, was pressured only 9 times in 40 dropbacks, and was not sacked. All of that on the road in a hostile arena, and without his favorite deep target, Darius Slayton, and his favorite everything target, Sterling Shepard, both out with hamstring injuries. Pro Football Reference has a pair of next-gen stats, bad throw percentage and on-target percentage, that track the type of throws a quarterback attempts. The first tracks percentage of poor throws per pass attempt, excluding spikes and throwaways. The second tracks percentage of on-target throws per pass attempts, excluding spikes and throwaways. Jones has a bad throw percentage of 11.4 through the first quarter of the season. In his rookie year, it was 17.9. Last year, 17.6. His on-target percentage is 79.3 through the first 4 weeks. In his rookie year, 71.1. Last year, 75.2. This shows me that he's making better decisions with the ball and better throws with the ball. His completion percentage this year is also a career high 66.7. And I just wonder how much higher it would be if his receivers didn't have 10 drops. That's a 7.1 drop percentage rate for Jones, the highest it's been so far in his young career. I talked on the last show about Joe Judge and Jason Garrett needing to take the shackles off of Jones to risk the potential for interceptions to have a shot at the reward of the big plays in the passing game that this offense is in dire need of. We finally saw that this past week. He had John Ross with a 52-yard bomb in the second quarter that Ross fumbled and recovered in the end zone for a touchdown. Down 21-10 in the fourth quarter, Jones found Saquon Barkley down the left sideline for a 54-yard score on the first play of a TD drive that ended with Jones running in the 2-point conversion to cut the lead to 21-18. Jones's football IQ made that touchdown happen. The Giants had run a similar play earlier in the game with a running back split wide against the Saints' number 1 cornerback, Marshawn Lattimore. Barkley noticed that Lattimore was sitting on an out route on the earlier play, so he continued up the sideline when they ran the play in the fourth quarter. Jones recognized that Barkley changed his route and was wide open. Jones fired a strike. Barkley only had to make the safety miss. Another good decision, another good pass, resulting in another big pass play. In OT, he hit Ross on a comeback route when he released the ball before the wide receiver was out of his break. He executed an RPO into another connection with Ross, followed by a perfectly timed screen pass to Barkley. Nice to see the screen game back in the Giants' offensive playbook. Later in the drive, he waited until Kenny Golladay came uncovered on a deep over route and connected with him to set up the winning touchdown. Jones was 11 of 15 for 176 yards on the final drives that produced 17 points and the win. Does his performance mean the Giants should now be considered contenders? Of course not. They have, as Rabbi said, a brutal stretch of games coming up, starting with Dallas on Sunday. But if they're going to take that next step on the road to becoming contenders, Jones needs to keep playing like this.
And also, he has the most unstoppable 2-point conversion play possible. Yeah. Everybody block me, and I'm going to go 2 yards in for the touchdown. Hey, Gets them what? Every single time.
The guy's done wonders with his legs, be it, on design quarterback runs and on that 2-point conversion play. He's doing it all.
If only Giant wide receivers can keep the ball in their hands, because they just seem to not know how to do that when Jones throws the ball. It's a very sickening disease. All right, Anthony, Mr. Negative, we're giving you the negative that needs to stop going into this next quarter of the season. What is it?
Yeah, Jay, you want to talk about being a broken record? It feels like every other week I'm talking about the Giants defense, and it gets sick to nausea. But they've been a bit of an issue this season, and particularly, do they have a pass rush? Because it's been virtually MIA through 4 games. Look at this. Through 4 games, the Giants pass rush have managed a grand total of 6 sacks. 6 sacks total in 4 games, 14 quarterback hits, and according to Pro Football Focus, the Giants are down to a total of 65 pressures. They also went 29th in the league with a 4.17% sack per pass attempt average. When you have Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, Lorenzo Carter, and Aziz Ojulari, who has 3 of those 6 sacks, by the way, as a rookie, lined up in your defensive line, and you can't get to the quarterback, that's a bit of an issue. And if it's not bad enough, the 4 quarterbacks the Giants have faced this season, Taylor Heinicke of Washington is really the only one who had a quick release and got on the ball quickly. The other 3 quarterbacks, they held the ball for almost or close to 3 seconds, which is more than enough time to at least get a hand in the face of anybody at this point. But also, you look at the fact that the Giants are not forcing any turnovers. So you have 4 takeaways total, 2 fumble recoveries, and 2 interceptions. James Bradbury has both of those interceptions. And we know about Dory Jackson's dropped interception in the end zone that would have probably won the game, sealed the game against Atlanta 2 weeks ago. On third downs, the Giants got a little better between week 2 and 3 after getting shredded in week 1 by Denver, getting a 47% on third down conversions. They reverted right back to who their third down woes against New Orleans. Gave up 8 of 13. That's 62%. And I was watching that game. I was talking about, look, if you're going to have a good defense, you got to know how to get off the field on third down. I mean, there were a few times where the Saints had third and long, and they still converted for a first down. But then you look at the keys. The Giants give up chunk yards on first down and second down. And then on defense, the defense on third and short, third and manageable, well, it's the opposing team, they have the playbook wide open. And that actually does kind of affect the pass rush. The secondary can't cover but for so long, and guys get wide open. So it's a systematic thing. And by the way, Jabril Peppers is showing that he's a bit of a liability as far as pass defense. He got a touchdown scored on him last Sunday in New Orleans, and you see why he's not on the field during obvious passing down situations. He's it reminds me of Landon Collins. That was one of his bugaboos with the Giants before he was traded to Washington, or when he left for Washington as a free agent. Well, it's the fact that he was not a great cover safety, and Peppers is starting to show that a little bit as well. Patrick Brown has got to figure out a way to be able to generate some kind of a pass rush without having to send multiple guys, which is leaving that already suspect secondary kind of vulnerable. And also, and with Blake Martinez out for the season, you don't have someone who can stuff the box and cover out as far as linebackers. So the Giants defense have a lot of work to take care of. And with a hard schedule, start with Dallas on Sunday, whose offense has been incredible this season, particularly the running game. They've rediscovered Ezekiel Elliott. So that's going to be key for the Giants come Sunday. But the Giants defense they've got to get back to what they were in the second half of last season, because right now they're looking a lot like the team they were the first 6 games of last year when they lost the first 5 games of the season. They're not forcing any takeaways. So when you're on the defense has been on the field for long periods of time, things just tend to fall apart systematically.
Yeah, and this offense is not the kind of offense that is really put together to win shootouts. I mean, you can talk about the Washington.
Oh, but they're going to have to.
But that's the thing, though, and I have a feeling that if they're in that position more and more as things go on,
Jones will make mistakes.
You're going to see more mistakes than you probably would. The question is how much. I mean, Joe Judge has been as conservative as it gets this year. You got to wonder if he's going to get even more so if he, as they start to go through this brutal stretch of the schedule, and because he's more concerned with not playing not to lose as opposed to taking a chance to try and win.
And that's a mistake, by the way, what I'll tell you right now, because first of all, Giants missed a golden opportunity. Denver, Washington, Atlanta, 3 teams that had okay offenses, and New Orleans, who probably lost this game more because of Sean Payton's play calling. I mean, for God's sakes, after you throw the same pass that you did with Taysom Hill that Jameis Winston threw, and you challenge the one guy on the Giants defense who's doing something, and James Bradbury. What is Sean Payton even thinking in that situation? So,
and he misses
but
Drew
the
Brees.
key is there's better arms than Drew, but forget about all that. 4 okay offenses. Now here's the next 4. Dallas, who we said is lighting the world on fire. The Rams, who can easily light the world on fire. The Carolina Panthers and rushing leader in the NFL this year as terms of touchdowns, Sam Darnold with 5. And of course, the Kansas City Chiefs, and we know what type of offense that is. I hate to say what you just said, Jay, but you know what? If that defense plays the way that they do, you're going to have to basically tell Daniel Jones to score 28 every game. And that's why Jason Garrett is so important in this next quarter of the season. Joe Judge has played a very conservative game, but you knew, as you said before, take the shackles off of Jones and you have him throwing to good weapons out there. Kenny Golladay is a good weapon. Ross from formerly of Cincinnati is a decent weapon out there who, again, almost dropped the ball. You have Rudolph. You have Ingram when he can hold on to the ball. And then, of course, you'll get Shepard and Slayton back in due time.
And having Barkley in the passing game, that was
I think Barkley in the passing game is good, and that was the most that he actually became as a runner, and he got the touches. You're going to need to score 28 to 35 points to win these next 4 games. I hate to say it, but unfortunately, that seems to be the truth, especially in this modern NFL. I don't know if the Giants can do it, but what Jason Garrett needs to do is play to win. And for Joe Judge, when the ball is on your side of the field, especially on the other side of the field, especially the 40 or the 45, and you have a short yardage situation, if you can't get that yardage, teach your goddamn team how to get that yardage. Analytics actually do better a little bit in this day and age. Learn them and don't say that's why we're here to coach and they're here behind computers. You need to get within the 21st century, buddy.
Take a page out of Brandon Staley's playbook. You have to score 7s. You have to, and if that means you got to go for it on 4th and short to keep a drive going,
you have to
take a risk inside the red zone. You have to. 3s are not going to get it done. Playing to turn over the field and play a field position game. No, it's not. It's not in 2021 NFL. No, it's not going to work.
Not in 2021 at all. This is going to sound familiar. After the Jets first win this past Sunday, dramatically, in overtime against the Titans, the Jets find some promise going into the second quarter, poll at 1-3. But now let's see where it differs a little bit. The Jets have a schedule with 6 out of the next 8 games against teams 1-3 or worse. Not yikes. And they got a gift from the heavens because their London game, they're going to go against an Atlanta Falcons team without their best player, at least offensively, coming over the seas with the pond because Ridley is out. Let's find positives and negatives with the Jets, starting once again with Jay.
You know, to me, what has stood out as a positive, and it has until this win, you know, we struggled to find positives with the Jets through the first 3 weeks. But I think the glimpses to his potential that Zach Wilson has shown us has been a positive that needs to continue. I mean, Wilson bookended his second half of week 1 and the second half in overtime of week 4 with some not surprising bad play due to rookie mistakes in between. All to be expected when you're trying to adjust to football played at a whole new level in terms of schemes and game speed. But the things that we saw in that pair of second halves are one of the few things that have gone right for the Jets for the first quarter of the season. I talked about Wilson's second half in the 1914 opening week loss to the Panthers on our September 16th show. 14-21, 174 yards, 2 TDs, passer rating of 123.9. I talked about how both of those touchdown passes to wide receiver Corey Davis showed us the skill set that the Jets saw on film and led them to pick Wilson with the number 2 overall pick in the draft. His ability to make plays off schedule. And he showed the chemistry that he and Davis have developed and his confidence in his own ability to put the ball where he wants to, even when the passing window is tight. His struggles between then and last week's win over the Titans were about as awful as it gets for a rookie quarterback. He got sacked at a David Carr-like level. Some of those sacks are due to an offensive line that played like a turnstile and had more holes in their protection than Swiss cheese. Some of them were due to Wilson holding on to the ball too long in an attempt to make a big play. He was not anticipating open routes, opening up inside, and as a result, he was late on a lot of throws. Some of this was due to bad play calls by rookie offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur, who did his quarterback no favors. Here's the numbers. Between the first half against Carolina and all 8 quarters against the Broncos and the Patriots, he threw 7 picks and was sacked 15 times. The offense he ran averaged 6.6 points per game, including just 3 total in the first half. Week 4 was the first time that Wilson was sacked less than 4 times and pressured on less than 25% of his dropbacks. Titans only got to him once, pressured him on less than 11% of his dropbacks. The ability of the Jets offensive line to keep a clean pocket is a large part why Wilson had the best game of his rookie season so far. 21 of 34, that's almost 62% completion. 297 yards, 2 TDs, 1 pick, 8.7 yards per attempt. He had 232 of those yards, both touchdowns, and a quarterback 129.4 in the second half. That saw him throw a 54-yard laser to Keelan Cole to set up a field goal. And off a play-action fake later in the quarter, he rolled out, waved Davis deep. He literally pointed to the end zone when he saw there was no safety help, and it fit a perfectly thrown 53-yard bomb into double coverage to his favorite target for the touchdown. Any hitch in his throwing motion that was there against New England and Denver was a no-show against Tennessee. Wilson's playmaking ability was great to see, and it was directly related to the win. But for him to be a complete quarterback, a franchise quarterback, he has to move the ball consistently, and he has to get better at anticipating and making the routine throws as well as the home run throws. LaFleur also has to get better at calling plays that give Wilson the best chance to actually make a play. And I think he's smart enough to do that. But like I said at the top, the glimpses Wilson has shown us should give the team and its long-suffering fan base some hope as we head into the second quarter of the season, where, as the rabbi noted, they have a schedule that has some very winnable games on them.
And defenses that are not good. Atlanta, Cincinnati, who just made Trevor Lawrence look like Joe Namath last week, Indy, injuries, Houston, Philadelphia, one of the worst defensive teams in the league. Zach Wilson has a chance to ball out over these next few weeks. And you know what? Even that New England game in 2 weeks, I know Belichick usually feasts on rookie quarterbacks, but not a lot of time in between matchups. Robert Saleh has done a decent job.
He feasted on Wilson in that first matchup. We'll see the adjustments that both teams have made by the time they meet.
Only rookie quarterback, by the way, to complete 10 more passes of 25 yards or more last week. But again, you're not going to be facing the Titans every single week. Titans did not show Wilson respect, and Wilson made him pay for it. Yep. Anthony, negatives.
The negatives is got to be the offensive line. And granted, I would give them this. They played far better last Sunday against Tennessee. First of all, Mekhi Becton's injury is really hurt this O-line from week 1, so that's pretty obvious. George Fant filling in for Becton on the left side. Had a good game. He had as far as pass protection, only allowed 1 pressure and 38 snaps. Morgan Moses is another guy. Just got beat up by Von Miller a couple of weeks ago. Had a solid game. And you look at this O-line. I mean, Vera Tucker as well, the rookie. When they're able to give Zach Wilson enough time to actually sit back and throw the ball, Wilson can pick apart the defense. He can literally complete passes. We saw it when he get big plays downfield, particularly the long pass to Corey Davis in the fourth quarter. This offense can go, but we've seen time and time again this offensive line kind of revert back to what we saw in week 1 and for much of week 2 and week 3, and not being able to keep Wilson might sign up. Greg Van Roten, who obviously called out Zach Wilson for holding the ball too long. He is clearly, and by scouts measures, the weak link of this offensive line, and he continues to struggle without question. He allowed 12 pressures, the second most of that's Tucker, but Van Roden is the weak link. I mean, a lot of the sacks that have been given up to Zach Wilson, it's literally on his side, and that's got to be a bit of a problem. And you wonder if the Jets are just going to finally bench him and go to a change. I mean, because right now, it reminds me, it gives the Jet fans of what Giant fans went through with Eric Flowers for 4 years, and just the inability to improve week by week. And the offensive line, they had a great game, but that's still obviously the weakest link to this offense. The running game still is MIA, virtually non-existent. They got 10 yards before contact and 0.5 yards after the fact. They just can't get it. They're not able to open up any holes in the running game. Pass protection has been hit and miss at best. And it's something that, you know what, maybe because the schedule lightens up a little bit that they may be able to improve upon. But it's clear that this O-line is not strong enough to really put on a consistent week by week performance. So it's gonna come down to play calling and being able to kind of move the pocket around a little bit, like they did last week, and allow Zach Wilson to use his legs a little more and to be a little more creative and to get out of the pocket a little bit. Because if he's standing we've seen it, he's standing in the pocket. He's going to be David Carr in a nutshell before this season's over. And I think I joked this with you, Jay, over this week. I said that the toughest thing that the Jets have right now is Zach Wilson's spine, because it hasn't been broken in half just yet.
Yep, and his head is still attached to his shoulders.
Yeah, this offensive line has got to step it up without question.
It's like a case of which came first, the chicken or the egg. When you see a running back they just don't also have running backs that can do anything on this team, and that hurts. I know you have a bad offensive line, but it's not great. Did you know that the Jets have the 13th best defense in the National Football League? It's actually a very underrated defense because they have 1,029 snaps from rookies or second-year players, and that is by far the most in the league. Bryce Hall, 271, Michael Carter II, Bryce Huff, Brandon Eccles, CJ, but this team had, I think, more sacks than the Giants had all season so far, in 7 sacks this past week against Tennessee. And that gave Ryan Tannehill, who had no one to throw to, a lot of problems. However, that defense also was caused of a pass interference call when the Titans were in a 4th and 13 late in the game that allowed them to get into overtime. They are the league's best red zone defense. They only give up touchdowns 1/3 of the time in the red zone. And if you look at the 4 games that they played, they didn't make Tannehill did not look good. Bridgewater, I mean, the game was 26-0 and Zach Wilson made mistakes. Matt Jones did not look really good against the Jets, and you saw the Bucs. He dominated the Bucs this past week in a pressure situation. And Sam Darnold, they only let up 19 points against them. So I want to see what Robert Saleh can do to make that defense get to the next level. Think Giants last year. Think top 10, top 5 defense, because if he can do that and really go with the defensive coordinator and keep that team in lockstep, I think I kind of like the Jets to win 6 or 7 games, or even maybe finish second place. It's a bad division, by the way. The Patriots and Dolphins are going nowhere, and both have quarterbacks who are either hurt or inexperienced. It's early, but I like what I see from the Jets. There are some starts to this team, but obviously let the buyer beware.
There you go. And Rabbi, how can you not like having the Williams brothers, each of them getting a sack last week? And that to me is something that's going to be fun for Jet fans to watch as the season goes on. I mean, those guys clearly enjoy playing on the same team together and pushing each other to get after the quarterback. So that should be fun to watch.
And CJ Mosley with 13 tackles, the most that he's had in 2 years in a game. So he can call plays like the best of him.
Nice to see him returning to form.
Like I said, the Jets have some promise, and there's no ceiling for them this year. It's just one big floor. So I think they can actually do a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, everyone else. From the positive surprises that the Cowboys have a defense and look kind of legit, to the Bengals not sucking, to the negative surprises of, sorry, Jay, the last undefeated team from 2020 having everyone declare their quarterback over the hill, which I completely 100% disagree with, to no, wait,
No.
not a surprise. I called that way before that actually happened. Sorry, no.
We all called that. That's good. He's going to be an epic fail in the NFL. And you know what? I don't normally root for someone to fail, but with the hubris that man has, I want him to fail.
Props to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who literally chanted grind at him this week at one of their practices. Talk about the meeting of respect. But there are some in the National Football League, as we are. Okay, technically, it's not the quarter poll because of the damn.
It's the quarter-ish poll.
We're 2/9 done with the NFL season. I did the math, so not exactly quarter full. Could be a surprise, Mr. Strait. Could be negative or positive.
I'm gonna go with positive, and we saw them just past Monday night. It's the Los Angeles Chargers, and look, I actually talked about them in our season preview as being a team to possibly watch out of the AFC West. Think about this: there are a couple of touchdowns taken away by either a penalty or by a miscue away from being undefeated. I mean, their lone loss to Dallas came on a game with a field goal. That even Dallas, Mike McCarthy managed to screw up as far as time management and just got away with one. But look, Brandon Staley, the head coach, he has just installed a winning culture in that locker room. Justin Herbert has really taken it to the next level as far as first year, the second year. Yep. He's over 1,100 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The defense is in the top 10, the offense top 10 as well. But it's more importantly, the Chargers are doing something that they were notoriously not doing the last few years. They're finishing games. Yeah. You saw how they closed the door on any door of a Raiders comeback. And also, how big was it 2 weeks ago to go into Arrowhead?
Yes.
A stadium they have really struggled in, to go into Arrowhead, to outplay and beat the defending AFC champions, to make Patrick Mahomes look pedestrian, which is very hard to do. Yep. Only the Buccaneers got away with that one in the Super Bowl last season. To do that and to come back to beat a divisional opponent back-to-back weeks. I mean, you look at the Chargers right now. Granted, we make the jokes about how they're playing basically 17 road games this season because it feels like there's more fans in the road team inside SoFi Stadium when the Chargers are playing. But you know what? They're playing hard. There's also a 3-1 start. And you know what? This team can really make some noise in the AFC West, particularly with the Chiefs uncharacteristically coming slow out of the gate in the first quarter of the season.
By the way, another surprise for me is the fact that Geno Smith, because Russell Wilson injured his finger tonight, is actually 9 for 14 for 118 yards. Yes, that Geno Smith that broke Eli Manning's consecutive games starting streak and led 2 touchdown drives. That is not an issue for this team this evening. They're still
and had his jaw broken too, FYI. I got throw that in there.
Oh God, I almost forgot about that. That's so long ago. Jay, you're up.
My guy is Sam Darnold. I mean, you can add the former number 3 pick in the 2018 draft to the latest example of a player, specifically a quarterback, just needing to get away from Adam Gase. Yes, Darnold struggled in the Panthers' 36-28 loss to the Cowboys, throwing 2 really bad interceptions in the third quarter before throwing 2 really nice touchdown passes in the fourth as they attempted a comeback. And being without Christian McCaffrey for a while longer due to the star running back's injury does change how dynamic Carolina's offense can be and does put a little extra pressure on Darnold to make plays. But the faith that head coach Matt Rule and offensive coordinator Joe Brady had in their ability to turn Darnold's career around has largely been justified so far. Through 3.5 games, Darnold had been playing intelligent, solid football, staying away from the turnover issues he had with the Jets. Then the third quarter against Dallas happened. A streak of 66 consecutive passes without a pick was snapped when Dallas quarterback Trayvon Diggs picked him off twice in the span of 3 passes late in the third quarter. On the first one, Diggs came off his receiver to jump a pass intended for Robbie Anderson. For the second, Diggs stepped in front of DJ Moore on an out route, a play that rulers said Darnold should have checked out of. Darnold recognized his mistakes. Quote, Diggs is a good player. He made 2 good plays on it. Obviously, they're balls I should not throw. He was just waiting for that second one. The first one, he was just reading my eyes the whole time and made a good break on it. Darnold bounced back with those 2 TD throws to Moore in the fourth quarter. He also had 2 rushing TDs in the first half. As Rabbi noted, his 5 rushing TDs are the most by a quarterback in the first 4 games of the season.
Anybody!
But specific to quarterbacks. And despite those 2 interceptions, Darnold was playing at a very high level. He never had consecutive 300-yard passing games in 3 seasons with the Jets. The Cowboy game was his 3rd 300-yard game in a row. He's completing 67.8% of his passes, averaging 297.3 yards per game and 8.1 yards per attempt. And he's already thrown more than half the number of TDs, 5, through 4 games, as he had all of last year, 9 in 12 games. They have winnable games coming up in the next three weeks. They're at home for the Eagles and the Vikings and then on the road at the Giants. The defense has been solid. They're number 3 in the NFL in both scoring, allowing only 16.5 points per game, and yards per game, allowing only 251.5. Though, they can't really allow a team to rush for 245 yards on them like the Dallas Cowboys did. Otherwise, you're going to have a problem. Darnold does not have to do this on his own. If the offensive line can get back to keeping pass rushers away from him, he was sacked 5 times and hit 11 by Dallas after only being sacked 6 times for the first 3 weeks combined. Darnold might just turn out to be the quarterback we thought he'd be coming out of USC. Look, I thought the change of scenery would help Darnold, but I did not expect this level of improvement this soon. So far, 1 really bad quarter aside, so good.
I was very impressed with them, obviously, outside of that bad quarter against the Cowboys game, but obviously I was very impressed with the Cowboys, who have done it all this year. They could easily be a surprise on there because of their defense, Micah Parsons, Andre Diggs, who probably that would be your early player for Defensive Player of the Year, Dan Quinn, who when he can call a defense, he can call a defense. And they've done it without really the help of an actual coach, because I don't know if Mike McCarthy even knows where he is half of the time. Speaking of, that leads me to my surprise, the Arizona Cardinals and their quarterback, Kyler Murray. Although Murray was an MVP candidate last year at this time, again, the Cardinals seem to win despite the decisions of clearly sometimes over his head Cliff Kingsbury.
Wow, still don't give him any respect. Huh? All right.
I can't. The man has attempted a 68-yard field goal, has played games against the Jacksonville Jaguars to the way too close to the vest, and are basically known by bettors as the Cocaine Cardinals, because in those 2 games they played almost scared and could have easily lost. However, in games against the Tennessee Titans, at Tennessee, and at the previously unbeaten, anointed by everybody and their mother as Super Bowl favorites, Los Angeles Rams, Murray played at his best. But Murray is more of a passer this year. Murray has run 9 less times. He's only run 23. He ran 32 last year. His average yards per carry is ridiculously down. It's only 4.79 yards per carry. It was 8.28 last year. The difference, I guess, having DeAndre Hopkins and AJ Green might help your passing
a little bit.
Percentage. It's 68. It was 68.8% in 2020. It's over 75% in 2021. 76.1. 354 more yards. 2 more touchdowns, 1 fewer interception, and he's averaging over 3 yards more per completion. And again, Kyler has legs. So not only is he a dual threat quarterback, he's now learning how to do everything a la Lamar Jackson year 2. He just needs to stay healthy. Now, of course, it's not just anything to have Hopkins, Green, Christian Kirk, and Rondale Moore as your receiving core. Chase Edmonds and James Conner, who apparently is still alive and doing pretty well, in Arizona is actually giving this team a dual threat position. They hadn't really had too many threats in the running back spot for years, and that helps this team open themselves up. And by the way, he only has 2 rollouts so far this year. He had 20 last year and 25 in his rookie year. So
that's
Kyler Murray is becoming
becoming a solid pocket passer is a big step forward in his development.
A very solid pocket passer. This is a much different team than it was last year. I don't know where the future is going for the Arizona Cardinals, but I know what's about to come. This team is for real, as is the entire NFC West, because the Rams sure as hell ain't going away either. They're about to go to 4-1 themselves. The NFL. All right, guys, that's it. We're done.
We're done?
Yeah. For Jay Kaplan, Anthony Strait, the guy with the eagle on his head, Phil Nevin, who just waved this show home and aimlessly. We're not getting thrown out of the plate, though. TBS, Bobby Thompson, Tony La Russa, Dusty Baker, the remake of Grumpy Old Men, Danny Dimes, Zach Wilson, Urban Meyer, The Grind, and not Garrett Cole. I'm Stephen Rabinowitz. Thank you for spending the rest of your night with us. Back again next week for another On the Sports Lines. You know the deal by now. Facebook.com/On the Sports Lines Live. YouTube.com/On the Sports Lines Taped in Demand. And I'm tired. Take it home, Jay.
And at ONTH Sportsline is our Twitter handle, where you will find links to our show and other interesting sports articles and tidbits of note that we believe are in your best interest to check out.
I'll enjoy one of the most wonderful times of the year in sports. You ain't ruined this for me, Yankees. I'm going to enjoy myself. Good night, everybody.
Night,
everyone.